Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag this Monday here on WCOU Radio, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. James Brown here with John Butler. Of course, we had a big boys game Friday night. The girls game really didn't make a difference in terms of who won and lost because the district tournament seeding was pretty much set no matter who won or lost between Glasgow and Barren County. But the boys game was rather critical, so we're going to start off with talking a little bit about some boys basketball this week. And that particular game, which Barren won at the buzzer on, I think, the only shot Joshua Decker made all night. He hit a little shot in the lane off the glass, and the Trojans beat the Scotties 40-38. Pretty slow-paced game, which, I mean, I guess the first meeting was too. It was 47-45 in overtime, so not to be surprised by that. But, you know, John, you watched the game. I mean, what was your impression overall of that game between Barren County and Glasgow?
Well, you're right. They've played two barn burners in terms of close games, overtime. Barron's won both by two, and both one in overtime. The second one almost in overtime. Mm-hmm. But they've obviously teams are very close, very competitive, low scoring. Mm-hmm. In terms of pace of play was really, really slow as well. But nevertheless, you know, Glasgow only, you know, they're 3-14, but right. they match up quite well with the district teams for sure. Mm-hmm. And against, you know, Barren, and, you know, there's just not a ton of difference between the two. The records are different. Barron's 12-9's won 4 straight, and Glasgow is, you know, obviously struggling. But it was a you know, from the Barren perspective, we're going to talk about – we're starting off with Barren, right?
Yeah.
Okay. From the Barren perspective, I mean, Gavin Nunn had a monster game for him.
Yeah, he did.
Had 14 points.
12 in the third, I think.
12 in the third. And, you know, he was fantastic, especially since Joshua Decker, who scored half of Barron's points in the first win.
Right.
He had 20. I think he had 23 points, and he had double-double against Glasgow in the first one. He only had 2. Now, he picked the right 2 to get, yeah. But he only had 2. So Glasgow did a good job of making some corrections from the first game. They were obviously bound and determined. They didn't want Joshua Decker to beat them again. Mm-hmm. It kind of worked, but it kind of, at the very end, kind of did beat them at the end. But Gavin Nunn had a huge game, and especially when Barren was I think the score was like, 20-18 at halftime? Something
yeah,
like that.
It was 14-13 at halftime.
14-13. That's correct.
Yes.
I mean, they were on a pace that was historic in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it threw us back to the 1950s. Yeah, it was rolling us back in time.
Cade Hardy had a huge second half too.
Yes, he did.
He had 11 points, but he had 3 threes and then some down the stretch too. I thought he was big. You know, it came. You know, when the game is that low scoring, the margin of error is very, very small. Mm-hmm. You know, Glasgow made a shot with about 20-something seconds ago.
Yeah.
It was
Jalen Bradley, I think, hit the jumper.
Hit the jumper in the middle of the lane to tie it at 38-38. Mm-hmm. And then Barren held it the rest of the last 20-something seconds, called timeout, and ran a really, really nice. I mean, it was a really good set. It was a set that they ran, and hey, you got to give Waylon Clemens a lot of credit. Because he made the pass. Mm-hmm. And they had Waylon kind of flash that high post. They kind of went high-low. Mm-hmm. Normally you go high-low with 2 bigs.
Yeah.
But they went high-low with Waylon Clemens, and Waylon may be the best passer on the team.
Yeah. And
he caught it at the high post and made just a perfect pass to Joshua Decker on the block, and he made it wasn't an easy shot because there were some Glasgow guys around him, but he made the shot with 0.7 seconds to go.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
And, once it went through the net, the game was over. So
yeah,
probably not the most thrilling game to watch, that low scoring, but it was compelling. Had big shots at the end. Glasgow made a big shot. It's not like the teams really turned it over at the end.
Right.
Glasgow made the shot to tie up, and then Barren held it, and oftentimes those last second shots is a guard with the ball making a play.
Yeah.
But this time, it was a more of an actual set where several passes were made, and then the pass from Clemens to Joshua Decker for the win, 40-38, and it gives Barren 4 straight. They won 3 games last week, beat Campbellsville 53-45 and Russellville 83-45, and then the slugfest with Glasgow.
You mentioned the scoring at the end. The interesting thing about the game, 14-13 halftime, the pace was absolutely
It was 13-11, and JoJo Driver, right?
Yeah,
made a shot at the buzzer, buzzer beater to end the first half,
right
from the corner.
Yeah, it was foreshadowing of how the game was going to go.
Yes.
But those last 2 minutes were actually pretty good basketball, which was kind of fascinating because both teams had some big shots there. I mean, the one that tied it from Jalen Bradley, I think JoJo had hit a shot before that one. Cade Hardy had hit a shot.
Yeah, teams weren't making mistakes at the end.
Yeah.
They were making plays at the end. That's kind of neat to see.
Yeah. I mean, so for a game that was so low scoring, it wasn't low scoring because it was necessarily a sloppy, ugly game. It was low scoring because that was the pace of the game.
Correct.
And so, you look at a score a lot of times like that and you're like, well, that must have just been ugly. But the game wasn't particularly ugly in terms of playing style and playing ability. It was just the style of the game.
Slow pace.
Yeah, it was a slow-paced game. And, I mean, I kind of find that a little bit fascinating between these two teams because both teams have good guards, and you expect teams that have good guards to get up and down the floor more, but Glasgow is keep playing very slow, and Barren doesn't play real fast, but, I mean, part of that is they've got Gavin Nunn and that comes in there and can make plays in the paint, but he's not really going to be running up and down the floor.
Yeah, and I don't know what the scores – I should have looked it up today, but I failed to do that. I don't know what the scores have been in like the last, 6-7 times the teams have met, but they tend to play more lower scoring games than higher scoring games.
Yeah. And I like as I watch those games between them, I mean that is the part that kind of blows my mind.
Most district games are played closer though because you're scouted better, you know each other and so forth, and some of it is just because of how well you're scouted, but some of it can be intentional. Just your style of play. Is Glasgow completely changing their style of play against Barren? I don't really think so.
Yeah,
they're not necessarily playing all that fast anyway, but the game had a good crowd. Had a good crowd at Barren. You expect good crowds between Barren and Glasgow. Even though Glasgow's record in both boys and girls are down, I still thought the crowd was good.
Yeah. Beyond that game, what happens, though, is Barren is 5-1 in the district, so they've got the top seed.
They're the top
sewn
seed.
Up.
It's not 100% sure who they're going to play.
Right.
It's more than likely going to be Allen.
Yeah, betting odds are on Allen at the
but
moment.
Allen still has 2 games left.
Yeah.
Nobody else in the district has 2. They still have Warren East, and they have Glasgow. And Allen has been in every game.
Right.
I mean, they play close games. They're going to have to beat Warren East. That's the key. If they don't beat Warren East, it doesn't matter what they do against Glasgow because Glasgow's already got 2 wins.
Yes.
If they beat Warren East, it makes an interesting matchup. That means the Allen-Glasgow game has a lot of meaning. I'm not for sure if anybody – I don't think anybody really wants to play Barren at Barren.
Probably not.
I would think if you ask Allen or Glasgow, they would both prefer, even though the games have been close with Barren. I think they would both probably prefer to play Warren East on a neutral site. But that's just Glasgow really shouldn't fear Barren. They've played them twice and lost by 4 points.
Yeah.
But I just think all in all, probably on a neutral site, maybe that's who they want. But I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. And, I mean, both of them, the interesting thing about Allen is they play at a faster pace than Barren or Glasgow do. They have the Pettigo kid that transferred from East, I think it was. He's played pretty well for him this year. They have a couple other guys who can score, but they don't – they know they need to score because they don't defend that well, which is basically why they've lost all their district games, is they just give up too many points. They can't get stops when it matters. But, like you said, I mean, these district games, because of knowing each other, scouting each other more cleanly.
Then there's not a dominant team.
Yeah,
there's not a dominant team in the district, and there's not a terrible team. So they're going to be fairly close together. I was going to say in the Barren game, from the Glasgow perspective, they didn't have anybody in double figures.
Yeah.
But Jeremiah and JoJo Driver both had 9 points.
Yeah.
Jared Martin did not make a field goal.
Right.
He had 5 points, and like last year, he just wore Barren out, and he's still coming back. It's still, he's still like 3 weeks into his recovery, so I expect him to be better even at the end of the year.
Right.
Got to watch out for that. Glasgow, it's just so weird to see how these things happen. Against Barren on Friday, they were 16 of 18 from the free throw line. So 16 of their 38 points from the free throw line. That's a lot of free throws in a 30. When you only score 38. On Tuesday, in Glasgow's loss to East, they got beat 61-39. And again, they didn't score 40 points at one time last week. Though that game was like tied at like 25-24 in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And Glasgow just stopped scoring. In their loss against East, they were 7 of 21 from the free throw line.
Yeah.
So they went from 7 for 21 to 16 out of 18 in 3 days.
And the interesting thing about what you just said is the score in the third quarter was 25-24. Glasgow was 1 of 12 from the foul line in the first half. If they make 8 of those free throws, they possibly have an 8 to 10 point lead, and it changes the whole dynamic of how the game is played at that point. So that's how critical making those free throws are, because you see it. If they'd have missed those free throws in the game against Barren, they'd have been lucky to score 30 points.
Right.
And you're right. It is an amazing thing how those things work sometimes, that people pay attention to the last play or these different things or the field goal percentage or whatever, that kind of thing. But the free throws can just change a dynamic in a game, because they did the same thing against East. They got to the foul line. They just didn't put any pressure on East by making the shots.
Maybe East has good free throw defense.
Yes. They waved the better banners in the background, I guess. I don't know. Miss here or something. Yeah, but, we kind of broke down, what this means for the district and that kind of thing. This week, Barren they play at Greenwood tomorrow.
That should be a good game.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty interesting marker for the Trojans, because Greenwood obviously is
third or fourth best team in the region.
Yeah, and they've played close to Warren Central and Bowling Green, so we know they have a good team, and this is Barron's won 4 straight, so it's going to be a good test for them. And then they play at Monroe County on Saturday. I think they beat Monroe by 20-something when they played at home earlier. It's kind of the rare Saturday game.
Rare Saturday, especially with no Friday.
Yes, exactly.
As far as I know, they don't have a Friday.
No, they don't.
Yeah, but that's always that's a tough trip to Monroe to play.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, everything changes over there.
It's a tough gym. It's a different. I've always felt like that gym was a difficult place to shoot in, play in, and so forth.
The ceiling looks low.
It does. I've always, of course, they've always had good girls teams too. That didn't help any, but I've always felt like it was a difficult. Even when we played district tournaments against non-Monroe teams, my team's never shot it very well over there. Never.
Yeah.
I always felt like when you put too much arch in it, you're just going to hit the ceiling.
It looks like it, certainly. And then Glasgow, they have Metcalfe County tomorrow night at home. That's a homecoming for them.
That's another team that's record is just incredibly bad. 5 wins with 2 of the better players in the region, in Jesse and Button.
Yeah.
And they've lost a lot of tough, close games.
Yeah, so that's going to be a fascinating one. And then they play at Clinton County on Friday,
finally lost their first game in the All-A to Hazard.
Yeah, I think by 2.
Yep.
So
who beat Greene County the night before.
Yeah. So, it's going to be – that's an interesting week for both Barren and Glasgow. Meanwhile, we haven't talked about Caverna because they didn't play for 9 days. They've not played a game since, I think, January 13th or something like that. It's been – no.
They played Taylor and Pulaski, right?
Yeah, and, they ended up not playing – yeah, they played Pulaski, but they ended up not playing the Rockcastle game they're supposed to play.
They need to play.
They do, and they play at Washington County tonight. Pretty good team for them to try to at least get a rhythm, I guess, because they're going to need it because they play at LaRue on Friday, and that's a huge district game.
Yeah, they need games.
They do. I don't know. I mean, so I guess they thought
part of it's the Class A schedule screw up.
Mm-hmm.
That that if you win, you at least keep playing. If you lose, it's like a scramble.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess they just decided they would penciled in they were going to be at the All-A tournament, and they didn't make that cut, and so they didn't get those games. And they got a pretty long break out of it. Right now in the region, Clinton is 21-1, Warren Central's 15-2, Bowling Green's 14-4. Everybody else is 2 or 3 games back from all that. Any other thing on the boys basketball you can think of, John?
South Warren took Warren Central to double overtime.
Yeah, heck of a game. And looked like they had it won in regulation, but Warren Central came up with a play.
Those first round district games in that boys district could be interesting.
Yeah, because like I just talked about, Greenwoods played well against Bowling Green and Warren Central. South Warren lost pretty handily to Bowling Green, I think, when they played them, but played a lot better here against Warren Central, obviously. So not calling any upsets because probably ain't going to happen, but there is at least some chance in that 14th district for things to be a little different this year. All right, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. James Brown here with John Butler. Going to talk about some girls basketball. We're going to start off with that Barren County Glasgow game on Friday. I think Barren County's won 9 in a row at this point, and their district games since the Christmas break have been all 20-point games or more.
Well, since Christmas, I wrote this down. The closest game was East. That was 42-36.
Yeah, that's right. That was a 6-point game.
And Bowling Green was about 7 in that very low-scoring game. Everything else has been running clock and double-digit.
Yeah.
And they need a battle.
Mm-hmm.
Barron needs a battle down to the wire. I think they probably need that. I would want that, to be honest with you. If they lose, it's not going to hurt them either.
Right. Well, and
they're playing great. I mean, let's just be real. They're 18-2. People saw them against Green opening night. That people would probably not bet on being 18-2.
Right.
But they've got a really, really good, well-rounded basketball team.
I think early, prior to Christmas, I would have thought they were going to be a team that was going to struggle to score this year. Just because, last year their best shooters didn't really shoot the ball particularly well and during the course of the season, and I think that, that's kind of what haunted them as they got to the playoffs. This year, though, they have not one, but they have multiple people. If one of them's cold one night, somebody else can come in and they can make shots. And that's the difference between this team and what we saw last year and maybe even the year before that, to be honest, is that they have multiple players that can come on the court and they can hit a shot. And then they have the stalwart defense that they have built. And so that's the thing. They can defend you, but now you've got multiple people as an opponent to try to track down and make sure you cover them. And if one of them's cold, one of them might get hot on you. And it's, it was Shelby Bird to start with and Addie Slagle, but Mahalia Burton shot the ball pretty well from outside. Atkinson shot the ball from outside. You still have Geralds and Elmore who can hit these mid-range jumpers, especially along the baseline. Plus, then they can turn you over and get into transition. So then they have the big kids that they can bring in and get post points and that kind of thing and defend in the post. And it's a rather interesting mixture. And I think I said this early in the year. I wasn't sure how Piper was going to work that out after I did the preseason interview. And maybe she wasn't exactly sure how it was going to work out because, it's kind of mixing in these pieces and you just got to see who's going to be game ready. And it's just been everybody who's come on the floor has contributed. I mean, I didn't even mention Addison McFall, who I think also hit a 3 against Glasgow.
Yeah.
She can hit a 3. She comes in. She defends well.
Uh-huh.
It's just a whole bevy of players that they can put out there and kind of play you in 2 different ways. And just it's really hard on opponents to figure out how to score against them.
Yeah, that's their calling card is defensively. They're good. They have the ability to press and especially with that diamond press when they put Bird or Atkinson on the front, that causes a lot of teams trouble.
Yeah,
a lot of teams trouble. And let's just be real. There's a a lot of teams do not handle the ball very well.
Right.
And that's almost like a knockout.
Right.
So they're versatile, and I do think it can help them even against some of the better teams. You can't press all game, but to get to change the momentum, or you're down at the end, to have that ability. Just think how many great point guards are there in this region?
Right. Not many.
Okay.
Maybe two.
Just
one.
Just point guards that you think, man, you gotta watch out for this point guard.
Right.
I'm
Truthfully,
just
Barren
making-
has the two best ones to beat a press.
So just flat out point guards, not a lot. Metcalf's got some good guards.
Yeah.
But just flat out point guards, they're going to break the press and things like that. There's not a lot out there, to be perfectly honest with you. So they have that ability, and plus they can guard you on the half court because they're long. Atkinson is long. Guard any player on the floor. Bird's long. Elmore and Gerald's are long and strong. There's just strong guards. Mahala Burton is a good. They just got good defensive players. So yeah, there's a reason why they're 18-2, and there's a reason why. On January 27th, they've turned into a real threat to threaten Franklin Simpson right now.
Yeah. Going back to the game against Glasgow, the interesting thing was Glasgow didn't give up too many just free baskets to Barren by turning the ball over on the wrong side of the floor. But once they beat the press or got the ball on their side, they could not score in their offense.
They turned it over 1,000 times. I don't know how many
Well, they ended up. It's just it wasn't like just a free layup. It's kind of like they wore down and then.
Yeah, the first 4 minutes of the game, I didn't know if anybody was going to score.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It was 0-0, and it was about 4 minutes left before Barren finally threw one in there.
Yeah.
But Glasgow they really didn't give them. Listen, in fairness to Glasgow, the matchup with Barren's a terrible matchup for them. They're going to play them again. I understand that, but it's just a bad matchup. Barren's just so much bigger than them at most spots. And got more experience too. That's the other thing. They got a lot more experience. So it's a tough matchup for Glasgow, size-wise, and there's a lot of things. But the pressure, the press, really bothered Glasgow. They gave Barren a lot of free points just on throwing it to the wrong person, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And those you'd be better off just taking a 10-second call in the backcourt or throwing it to
Make
the
them
stands.
bring it in from out of bounds instead of a layup.
That's correct. So, the final score is 52-25, and both games have been – I thought Glasgow was actually more competitive the first game because they were at about halftime.
Yeah.
But, when Barron's playing – well, and I don't know if Barren played great. I don't think they played great against Glasgow. Katie Elmore had 14, and Ashley had 9. W. Bird only had 5. So, and Glasgow was solid defensively. Coach Kirkpatrick does a good job defensively. They know where to go, and their principles are solid and so forth. But the real struggle. I'm just not to be critical. I'm just trying to be factual. Is that Glasgow struggles to score, and it's that's against Barren. You get. If you face good teams, you got to score something. You just don't. You're not going to shut out these teams. So you got to score.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of been the theme of the season for them is they do struggle to make shots, and we've seen some of their shooting percentages. They're pretty bad, and you just can't win like that.
No, but they did get a win last week.
They did.
They're 3-15, so we might as well. They did beat Butler County 49-43, 49 points. They got some points up, and Carly Hagan 19 points, sophomore for them, and that's they need double-digit players. I think Reese England, the 7th grader, had 10.
Yeah,
and she's shown where. It's just you're asking a lot for 7th graders.
Yeah. I did want to point out something I did see England do twice that I thought was pretty good, and they ran a pick and roll, and she made 2 perfect passes to the role player.
Right.
And one of them scored, and one of them, got mishandled and turned over.
Yeah.
But I was pretty impressed by that particular situation right there, especially for a 7th grader to make that kind of pass.
That's right. But it's a tough game, if you can handle it and improve off that as a young player, that will really benefit you down the road.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen with some of the Glasgow kids, to be honest with you. They fill them out there as 7th graders and 8th graders during Coach Stinson's heyday. Some of the earlier when they took some lumps, but they got better, and they got much better as the years went on.
Yeah.
It can go either way. You can either take your lumps and you're hungry and you want to keep getting better, or it can discourage you at times. But they do have some nice young players, and overall, outside of Cynthia Austin, really, they're still relatively young.
Yeah. I mean, 3 of their starters are sophomores, I believe.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, look, we say this probably every week. The future looks bright because they are young. They do have to figure out how to do some things that their more experienced players, even though they're young, have not necessarily improved at.
They got to
They got to make shots.
You have to improve your skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, ball handling and shooting.
Yeah.
And that's something you don't need anybody in the gym with you.
No, that's right. A little bit about the upcoming week. We've already mentioned Barron's playing at Greenwood tomorrow, and then they'll play at Monroe on Saturday. I figured the game at Monroe, they beat Monroe pretty handily at Barron. It'll be tougher over there for them.
It will be tougher. Monroe, don't forget, upset Metcalf last week.
Yes. I mean, so that Monroe County team, I thought the way that game went was an anomaly based on what I expected to see between those two. And I think the one Saturday may be a different deal. Glasgow plays Metcalf tomorrow. The boys' game is at 6 o'clock, and the girls' game is at 7:30 because it's homecoming. Oh. So it's going to be flipped.
They're doing a Tuesday homecoming.
Yep.
Oh, Barron did that too.
Yeah. So maybe it's the new trend, John. But, yeah, so that'll be the homecoming. By the way, you can listen to all the Barren County games on 104.7 WCLU Burgundy with Jay Turner on the call. You can listen to all the Glasgow games on 103.1 WCLU Blue with Chase Landrum on the call. So tune in and catch those games wherever you want to catch them this week, and all the ones that are on. Right now, Franklin is 16-2 in the region. Barron's 18-2. Metcalf 16-5. They got the top 3 records. February 4th, which I believe is next Tuesday, I believe is what that is.
Don't know.
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
Barron plays Franklin Simpson. On the girls' side, that's a much anticipated game, and I'm curious to see what the coaches do in that game, because right now, if you were to pick who might meet in the regional finals, depending on how the bracket's drawn, it would be these 2 teams.
Yeah, 2 of the better teams. Yeah, early February game.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those, what do the coaches show each other? What are they preparing for? I mean, I know we got a lot of games left, and last year.
Everybody has a different perspective on how you handle that and so forth. It'll be a good game, regardless. Will it be an indicator of how it'll go in the tournament? Not for sure.
Yeah, because, look, last year.
Buffalo beat Kansas City in the regular season.
That's right. Well, and last year, Franklin Simpson got upset in the semifinals by Bowling Green, and Barron didn't even make it to the regional tournament, and they were the 2 that were expected to meet last year, really.
Correct.
So, you never know what could happen. Anything else on the girls' basketball side, John?
No, it's like you said, it's, 3 weeks to the district tournament?
Yeah,
wow.
3 weeks. Not long at all.
Not long.
All right, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag. This is James Brown, John Butler, presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We're here every Monday at 4 o'clock. On WCLU, 103.1 and 104.7 simultaneously, John, and AM. You can do AM, too, if you're down with that. The NFL playoffs the conference championships were Sunday, both of them. One game was Saquon Barkley saying, I don't know why I'm not the MVP. And the other game was Patrick Mahomes saying, I don't know why I'm never in the conversation to be the MVP.
Well, he has been MVP.
He has been, but every time the playoffs come along, you realize every year he should be in the conversation every year, no matter what the regular season stats look like. He's just sandbagging the regular season, I guess. I don't know, but it is kind of an amazing thing. Which game you want to talk about first?
Yeah, you choose.
All right, well let's mention the Eagles so we can get them out of the way.
Okay. Very impressive performance.
It was. I mean, look,
they'll be hard to beat.
There is.
Their offensive line is tremendous.
Their defense is good.
Defense is good. Got a great offensive line. They're skilled players. Their weakest skilled players are quarterback.
Yes,
And
he
he's
really
good.
is. Yeah.
I mean, A.J. Brown and Smith at the receivers. Then you got Saquon Barkley. They're going to be hard. I don't care. It's going to be Kansas City, but that's a tough matchup. If they play that well, that's a tough matchup for anybody.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned their weakest skill player is Jalen Hurts, and he's the reason that 2 years ago they made it to the Super Bowl to play the Chiefs.
Right, and he played tremendous yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it was his best game he's played
Yep.
probably in a month or so. And I think what's interesting about them is they changed their identity from more or less the RPO, tush push, and everything. They went and got Saquon Barkley, and they are a run-first team, and they have a quarterback who can run the run first. They somehow, despite the obvious during the regular season's, challenges with the receivers, they got Brown and Smith to get on the same page and say, look, when you get the ball, it's going to be because you have a chance to make a huge play in the
Brown
game.
is the
He's the main one.
He's the main one.
Which he was like that with the Titans when he
Yeah,
was there,
yeah.
which is why they were fine with him leaving.
You're right.
But it is interesting to get these two receivers to go, look, you're not going to get the ball every down. You're not going to get 12 targets a game and that kind of stuff. But when you get a target, you're going to be open. It's going to be a big play opportunity, which is exactly what it is. Meanwhile, Barkley's ripping off 67-yard touchdown runs on the first play.
First play of the game, yeah.
And so
He probably didn't get the ball enough.
no, he probably didn't. I mean, they really didn't have to give it to him anymore, as the game went along. But the one thing I will say before I talk about the Chiefs and Bills game itself, if there is a weakness that I think the Chiefs have, it is stopping the run.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yes.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be a tough matchup, the Eagles.
Yeah. I mean, so it's going to be a fascinating situation. And going back to the Chiefs-Bills game, one thing that always kind of amazes me is the Bills have a play that they run. They run it basically the same way every time. It's a fourth and short, third and short play. It's their version of the tush push where Josh Allen just tries to go off left side. He's a big old dude, and usually he gets there just by the fact that he's massive. The Chiefs stopped it all 4 times they ran it, I think.
No. Not all 4 times.
Well, they got it once.
No. They actually got it early in the game.
That's right.
They did, but they stopped it a couple of times late. They stopped it on a 2-point conversion.
Mm-hmm.
They stopped it in, the kind of the controversial play in the fourth quarter, in which, I'll be honest with you, I to this day, I think Josh Allen got it.
It looked like the ball was across
It
that
definitely
little
looked-
magic
well,
line they
in fact,
put down
one
there.
official did mark it that
Yes.
way.
Uh-huh.
That's a little sore subject,
Yeah.
to say the least. I hate it for Buffalo. I really do. I like Kansas City. I like Patrick Mahomes. Love Andy Reid. There's nothing I'm going to say negative about Kansas City, but I hate it for Josh Allen just because of the crap that they take.
Yeah.
He was not the reason why they lost.
No.
He played fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
But he will get, the criticism that he can't beat Patrick Mahomes. It's like it's him versus Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And it's just, to me, it's just so unfair. And he handles it with class and so forth. But, what makes Kansas City great is Mahomes is great. Don't get me wrong. How much better is he than Josh Allen? I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't know if he's that much better or whatever, but I do know he's got great coaching.
Yeah.
On the offensive side, Andy Reid is a tremendous play caller.
Mm-hmm.
And they draw up better plays, in my opinion, than Buffalo does.
Yeah.
And on the defensive side, their defensive coordinator,
Spagnuolo,
unbelievably good.
Yeah.
So Kansas City has good players, and but they're also extremely well coached. Buffalo's well coached too, but I don't see it exactly the same and so forth. And by the way, on that fourth down that Josh Allen did not get, I thought they got it on third down.
Yeah.
On the screen to the tight end, I thought he was clearly past it. So the little things like that are a little irritating from the Buffalo side of. But I will say this: they held Kansas City to a field goal. So Kansas City takes a 3-point lead with 4.5 minutes to go. It's in Buffalo's hands to go down and tie it or win it, and they couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt if Kansas City had it, they would have gone down and tied it at least. I have no doubt. Now, is that just because I have faith in Allen, but I also have faith in Mahomes and Andy Reid.
Yeah.
And their players make plays. The last play of the game just sums it up. This playoff reminds me of, I just keep thinking of tight ends dropping plays, dropping passes.
Yeah.
Lamar cannot hand it to Mark Andrews even. He drops in the end zone.
Yeah.
And on the fourth down play and with the all-out blitz, and Josh Allen makes an incredible throw.
It looks like he threw it up.
But he threw in the right direction.
Yes, he did. He threw it where he meant to throw
it. Dalton Kincaid, is that an easy catch? It's not an easy catch, but it's – I'm not bragging. I think I could have made that catch. I'll be honest with you. It hit him in the hands. It's coming down softly. Nobody hits him.
No.
And he drops it. If he catches it, they're already in field goal range. That's inside the 30.
Yeah.
That's right around the 35 right there. And a first down. And does that mean that they're going to beat Kansas City? No. They could go in and score. Or they could make a field goal. But I don't know how it's going to. But Kansas City gets the ball back, and this is what I love about Andy Reid, and this is where I thought Buffalo lost the game when they took a 22-21 lead and they had the ball, and they played too conservative.
Yeah.
I think the only way to beat Kansas City is you got to get up 2 touchdowns and make them.
You got to keep the pressure on.
That's correct, and I thought they got too conservative. I don't think it was Josh Allen. I think the coach I just thought they were too conservative. But give Kansas City credit. They needed 2 first downs to win it. Rather than run it up the middle 3 times and punt, they trust their quarterback. They trust the scheme, and they made the right play, and Josh Allen never got the ball back.
Right.
And that's the beauty of Mahomes. It's also the beauty of Andy Reid and some of the stuff they run.
That you mentioned they needed
Buffalo went away from throwing the ball in the second half. When all they were doing is running, I thought a little bit too much. Kansas City was doing everything he could to stop that, and Josh Allen made tremendous touchdown passes. And I wish they let him go a little bit more. But great game. I just hated that to hear, just the pundits on TV. It drives me crazy. If you can hire anybody you want to be a sports analyst. And if it just comes down to, well, this team won, they got the better quarterback, then what are you analyzing? What are you analyzing?
Going back to 3 things right now. All right, so you mentioned they needed the 2 first downs. On those 2 first down plays, I think they threw a pass to a guy who had run the ball some but had not caught a pass in the game.
Right.
They threw the other one to a guy who I don't think had played a snap yet in the game.
Yeah, P-Ron.
Yeah.
Both of them picked up this year, picked up off waivers too.
Yeah.
The other thing is too, and these NFL coaches, they get paid a ton of money. Their math is awful. You don't go for – I'm not a big fan of going for 2 points until the very, very end. They kept trying to – Buffalo took a point off the board after they made an extra point.
Yeah. Because
Kansas City jumped off sides, so they went for 2 and didn't get it. They went for 2 twice and didn't get it. Chasing points. Quit chasing points. I read this today. 2-point conversions in the playoffs. 2-point conversion, in which the Buffalo was voluntarily going for 2-point conversion when they didn't need to. 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
30%.
Well, you go back to the Ravens' loss to the Bills. They chased 2-point conversions. Well, they had to on the second one, but the first one they didn't have to.
If Buffalo had not gone for all those 2-point conversions, the game would have been played differently.
Yeah.
But, they kept chasing it when I didn't think they needed to chase it. Even if it's in the first half and it's 14-12 you score, kick an extra point.
Yeah.
Because if not, if you don't get it, then a touchdown now puts you more than a touchdown away. You're always within range, and I just hate it when teams chase these chase points that way.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say about the Reid and Mahomes combo is the cornerback for the Bills got hurt early in the first quarter.
Yes.
And
concussion after a week before had a concussion.
Yeah. They bring in the guy, and they just target him the whole game.
Yeah.
They keep doing things to put pressure on that guy, and they kept utilizing that pressure to affect how Buffalo is going to play defense.
The other beauty about Kansas City, and this is why, in my opinion, if you can find a head coach who also calls the plays. Mm-hmm. And then your quarterback will never go through 15 different offensive coordinators.
Yes.
Pat Mahomes has only had one offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And that's Andy Reid. Now, listen, they got others by title,
right.
but Andy Reid is a play caller.
Yeah, he's doing. He and Mahomes. It's like a good coach and a point guard.
Baker Mayfield, he's now going on. He's been in the league 9 years? Gone on 8 coordinators.
Yeah.
I mean, so systems are changing and things like that. That's the beauty of having your head coach is the offensive guy. That's happened in the Rams, with McVay and with Kansas City and Sean Payton in Denver and things like that.
Yeah, it's kind of the 49ers situation.
Now, Belichick was a little different, but he only had a couple of offensive coordinators for the most part. So I do think there's a big advantage if you can match up that with the quarterback and the coach.
You mentioned the Belichick, and we got to get out of this segment here in just a second. The thing about that was the relationship existed between the head coach and the quarterback so that the input was circular. It wasn't just a one-way street offensive coordinator. Right. And some of them were better than others, but obviously Belichick had an input because he knew the personnel. And that's what I thought about that with the Andy Reid thing as well, is you go back to that run by the Patriots. A lot of what happened was in a game they could make adjustments if something happened to the other team that they could take advantage of. That's what Reid and Mahomes are able to do on the offensive side of the ball. They did it in the Super Bowl last year when Greenwell went out.
The Patriots were never the most talented team.
No.
But they seemed like to me they were always the smartest team.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the same thing with Kansas City.
Yeah. Whatever presents, they have an opportunity. They always seem to have a thing ready for every opportunity.
Right. A play that nobody could take away.
Right.
They eventually took away those sneaks by putting their best. They slid Jones and a couple more players to the left side where Josh Allen always the quarterback sneak always went left.
The one quarterback sneak they got, I think, in the second half was one they did in the quick snap count. So they didn't allow Kansas City to get that adjustment. But anytime there was time for them to adjust, they got the bodies on the field.
And eventually you got to do something different.
Yeah, and I mean it worked a couple of times, and one time controversially did not. I have down here the college football championship. Ohio State won for anybody who's been over a rock. It's 34-23. Went about like we expected, John?
Yeah, for the most part, Ohio State had a big lead. Notre Dame made a little run late, but, not – again, I said it last week. They got to do a better job of the playoffs went too long.
Yeah.
And you don't want to play your final game on a Monday following the NFL playoffs the day before. It takes away all the steam.
Yep. All right, it's Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, we got about 3 minutes left, so we're going to mention swimming results. The Region 2 swim meet was Friday and Saturday, technically.
I think it was indoors.
Yeah, I hope so, yeah. It was at Owensboro Health Park, and I'm guessing they have an indoor pool there. Grant Harper of Barren County, he finished top 5 in 2 events. That gets him into the state first round, which is February 8th at Bowling Green High School, and then Anna Kate Alexander, also from Barren, finished top 5 in an event, and so she'll also be in her version of that meet. They've done it like golf now, so they got a first round, and if you get through the first round, then you get to go to the state final round. That'll be in Lexington. I think that's on February 21st or so it's a little further out. But congratulations to them. Good run there. Glasgow had a couple of swimmers that competed as well. I think one of them made it through the prelims and got to the championship round, but didn't make it out, and I don't think any of the other Barren County ones made it out. But anyway, that's the only 2 seniors of our local swim teams as well. On the college basketball front, who's going to win the SEC, John?
Good question. Alabama.
You think they'll end up being the best team, or they are the best team?
You talking about the season or the tournament?
Well, the tournament's probably the most important thing.
Well, I don't think. No, it's not.
Okay, the season is sure.
Yeah, I mean the conference tournament didn't mean anything.
That's true. That's true. For a multi-bid, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, they're going to get 12 teams in a tournament.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dang, what are there, 16 in the SEC now?
Yeah, I think there'll be 12 probably.
Well, and look, Kentucky lost to Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt's was down closer to the bottom.
Yeah, Vanderbilt's in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Vanderbilt's in. I mean, the only teams Arkansas's on the bubble. Right? No, they're not on the bubble. They're not in.
Yeah, they're out at the moment.
They're out. South Carolina's out.
Yeah.
Who else?
Yeah, that's true. Everybody else has got a shot.
A shot. There's more than a shot.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Yeah, I think everybody else is probably in.
Everybody else seems
Texas,
to be ranked
maybe?
in the top 25.
Texas?
Yeah,
I don't
Texas.
know. Maybe. I don't know. I think of all the teams, I think Alabama may be the best. Auburn's really good too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Auburn can play any way you want them to play and still beat you.
Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee's a long-term tournament team because I don't think they score good enough. But man, that's who Kentucky plays Tuesday.
Yeah,
I think it's a bad matchup for Kentucky. They're not real physical. Tennessee's just they like these rock fights you get into.
Yep. All right. Well, we would get into more basketball.
Louisville still hadn't lost forever.
That's right. They played one game, beat SMU, beat the snot out of them last week.
8 in a row.
Yep. All right. It's Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be back here next week at 4 o'clock. James Brown, John Butler, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.